Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Let the conversation begin. This is Let's Talk with your host, Carl Lee.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Lee, and this is Let's Talk. And I have my co-host is out today. He was busy, and even though I'll make the smart remark about it, so when he listens to the show, he'll get it. He gave it to me at the last minute that he was busy and working. I don't mind him working, but he needed to let me know earlier. But that's all right. I got a guess. Corey, give me a little bit of information about yourself. So, I like all the good stuff, all the positive stuff, and all that kind of stuff. So, give me a little bit of information.
Gotcha. All right. I'm Corey Sergent. I grew up here in Hurricane, West Virginia. Own a small business in Hurricane after moving around Virginia, South Carolina, some other states. Right now, we're here to talk football. So, I'm a head coach and the organization president for the West Virginia Warriors Football Association.
Okay. Now, the Warriors that is actually a travel football team, and as far as it goes as a league, you have a team, and then there's this whole kind of league thing that comes with it.
Yeah, so I'll touch on just travel ball in general. So travel ball, there are different organizations that put on tournaments throughout the nation. So here locally, you have a couple of people that put on tournaments mostly at Shawnee, or they bounce around to like West Virginia State and some other local high school fields. So normally you're going to go in for a weekend. You're going to check in. You're going to verify age on a Friday or maybe Saturday morning and then play Saturday and Sunday. Locally here, I believe they have about 6 tournaments a year currently.
Okay.
But you can also travel around. When my son was playing, we went to Tennessee and Ohio and other places. Just depends on how much you want to get into it.
Well, I do. I want to kind of get as deep as we can get because, again, I am a anti-travel, but I've had some conversations with Dr. Lavender because my issues are all around safety. And the whole reason, ladies and gentlemen, for this show is for the folks who are the gun-ho, try to get to every tournament, to try to get and kids playing youth football and travel football and getting the bang out of the buck. This show is to introduce something that I think that is a whole lot better than what I think a lot of other folks are doing, and maybe they don't have access or information about this type of play, and I'll make the case that I don't think this kind of play matters to them, to the people who are the gun hoes. And so tell us a little bit about how this got started. Go back as far as you can, how this got started, why did it get started, and where is it now?
Sure. So this all came to fruition when we were in league play. And as we were winding down our season, they were 6U kids at the time, predominantly, that we were coaching. They were running the table. No game was close. We had a lot of talent, and the other teams had a couple dogs on them, but they just really couldn't keep up. So we wanted to challenge our kids. And there was talks, we heard parents talking about, hey, travel football. At that time as well, I was kind of gun shy about travel football in general. I had experienced it with my older son, and me personally, this organization didn't do it necessarily wrong. I just didn't like it, for my son. So talking about it, the other coaches got together and said, hey, let's do this, but let's do it the right way.
Okay, and if you can,
sure,
and if you care to, tell us a little bit about some of the things that in as you started to build this, what were some of the negatives and why were they negatives, if you can give that?
Yeah, so in starting one of the negatives is like you just said, safety. Right. Thumping and banging 12 months out of the year is not healthy for a child's body.
Right.
And so when we're looking at this, we say, hey, we've got league play. That's still physical. No matter what level you're playing, it's still physical.
Right.
How are we going to do this? So we looked at it as, first and foremost, safety. We're going to limit the amount of contact. If we do this, we're going to limit the amount of contact they have. Not every practice is going to be contact. I think right now we probably average one 30 to 40-minute full contact session every 2 weeks when we're practicing. Okay? So that's what's different from league ball. So we got that down. Hey, we're going to limit contact. We're going to make it more of an academy type style where we're teaching technique, we're teaching fundamentals, and we're teaching more of a complex offensive and defensive scheme than what they're seeing as 6-year-olds, right?
Because you can do that because you can take the time without doing the contact, you can take the time to teach all of those kind of things in that course of a practice.
Yeah, that's one great point to it. And the other side is you also have kids out there who want to be there. And I'm not saying that league ball, everybody comes in. You've just got different interest level.
Right.
You got your dogs that want to be out there every day, giving it 100%, and you got some kids that are like, hey, I'm trying this. I'm kind of in. I'm kind of out. Right. And you may have to, at that age, herd the cats, so to speak. Right. The first thing we saw in travel ball is these kids are out here. They want to play. They want to learn. So the amount of development that we could get done in an hour and a half period was just phenomenal. We came out of that first practice and said, this is what it's all about. And we didn't really hit a lot. We just came out of the league ball. That was 2022 last year.
When you're talking about league ball, you're talking about the youth.
Rec ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Youth, the normal youth football programs that everybody's used to, Capital or Charleston, South Hills, that kind of
EKC,
thing. All those.
They're representing their community,
yes.
Right? And so this pretty much formed out of what was a predominantly Hurricane, a base of Hurricane players.
Right.
And then from there we added on. We made some friends along the way in league ball, brought them in, and then this kind of took a life of its own after the league. So we've got a good mix of players. But when we were doing this, not only the safety was first and foremost. So we feel like we got that formula out, as in we're not doing full contact every practice. It's probably average about once a week, 30, 45 minutes. That'll give the body enough time to heal. The second thing we wanted to do, and what you just talked about, what I call league ball or rec ball, we didn't want to step on any toes there. This was more of an extension of league ball and like supplemental, right? This is what happens outside of league ball if you want to do it. Go ahead.
Okay. So, and I just want to jump in. Just when I have a question, I need to jump in there. So if my grandson is interested in, let's say he's playing rec ball, you guys don't even do it during the time that there's league ball.
No.
So I don't have to worry about trying to make it to a practice, even though it's not a physical practice. I don't have to worry about him getting to practice, missing, an hour and 40-some minutes worth of install and not being able to catch up because you're not interfering with rec ball, league ball, what everybody knows as youth football.
Youth football, yeah.
So that in its own right, what was the conversation about, like, hey, we want to do this, but let's leave the rec ball, youth football out of it and play, outside of their realm so we don't interfere. Because most people, and I'll even go to the majority of the people that I think they want to do it during football season. And because it's during football season, they're having, youth league practice games. We might have to miss the youth league games because we're going to travel somewhere and play a game over there. That's the issue, I think, that is a concern. But I wanted to separate you guys from that because that's not what you guys are trying to do.
Not at all. So
right.
When we talked about this, like I said, this is supplemental to the league 100%. We don't have any practices, any gatherings during league. That was off the table. When we formed this organization, 2 of our 4 board members are also board members in a youth football organization.
Okay.
And that was near and dear to my heart because I think you rep your community.
Right.
Like for me, when you play football, I remember growing up repping my community, wearing those colors with pride. And I think every kid should experience that. Now, if they want something else, good for them, but that's not our organization. Here's what we're going to do, right? And that's start a week or 2 after the youth football championship.
Okay, so we got a 2-week break, and now we go. So the 2 weeks are up. I'm bringing my kid to you for what I'm going to call. I'll just call it travel football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm already fully aware of, my concerns with youth football. Okay. So I'm dropping my kid off to you. Well, one, I'm going to stay and watch practice, and so I want to see. So the very first thing I'm going to see is you guys either fitting them or having them in shorts and doing whatever. But they're out there learning the system. Kind of give me that introduction. So if I'm bringing and if I'm selling this, that's okay, because I don't have. If safety's going to matter, the safest matters. And to me, at this point, I think and have heard that this is the safest travel situation that I think kids have been put in. So I've got a sale here too for parents to wake up. And I'm not saying everybody's got to, but I'm just saying that there is a better way.
Yeah. So we will dress them full pads just to get them used to it. Mm-hmm. There may be some, fire off here, punch here, but we're not going full contact, right? So what you call thud style,
right?
Where they may be
dummies hitting dummies.
Yeah,
and those
exactly.
kind of things.
Yeah, that's right. But we're not going full bore with it, scrimmaging, going live drills like that. So they drop them off. We go just kind of regular football. We go into individuals, mm-hmm. and then we work on with the short time we had between league ball and the first tournament. It's about, I believe, a month. We would go in there, we'd start teaching the blocking schemes we have, and then making sure that they're repped on that, because we have kids from, I believe, 4 or 5 different youth football organizations. Everyone's running something different.
Right.
So we had to spend the bulk of our first several practices just repping on air, the run blocking schemes as well as pass blocking schemes. And some of those kids, when they were coming, they're so young, they never really had a pass blocking scheme, right? So we were teaching from scratch, which is great, but that's just another fundamental that they learn, right? So we walk through that, then we go through team. We do a lot of it on air. If we've got 11 running on air, you will see other coaches with however X amount of players we have, 3, 4, 5 over there. They're over there individually instructing these or putting them in groups of 2s and telling them, hey, here's the playbook. Let me run over this way.
So are they working on basically at the position that they would be playing on the offense? Is that how that's working, or are they just doing something specific that they're going to learn anyway?
Yeah, so it would be positionally. It'd be positionally focused.
Yeah. Okay,
and it's like, hey, here's what you're going to do. Even if they're not in, we had to put a premium on this. We're introducing new schemes to these kids, and we got to get them positionally up to par so that we can put them on the field and play as a team, right? And that's our focus on the first few practices this year, is just to get the scheme down, get the technique down behind it, right? And then I think our third practice, we went like full contact for about 30, 40 minutes just to get them back in the habit, because it had been 3 weeks to 6 weeks since some of these kids had seen since they've seen college. And then from there, we went and played in a tournament December, I believe, 2nd and 3rd, so it was the weekend before last. Another thing we looked at is there were 2 tournaments 2 weeks in a row. There was one weekend before last and this past weekend. We felt that 2 tournaments in a 2-week period was too much. So we just decided to go to the one. We're familiar with the organization. We like what they do. I don't know much about the one we missed, but we just are familiar with these people. So we went in and participated in theirs. Went 4-0. Won the tournament. So shout out there. But
no problem.
Yeah, and then we just decided to let the kids rest. We didn't practice we didn't practice last week. We set this tournament out. Now, another thing that's unique about our organization is if parents want that, if parents want more than what we offer, we have no issue with them going and playing for another team if we're out of a tournament. And we actually had one or two players actually go play for another team because that's what they want with their child. Right. And if that's what they want, that
you can't do anything with that.
No, well, yeah. I mean, it's their child at the end of the day, and I fully support it. I mean, I was texting the parents saying, "Hey, send me video. Let me see what he did on there. Let's see what we can work on. When we're back for a tournament, right?" So,
and I'm gonna put this out there based on just that piece of it, and I'm curious to see if you agree with me here. Unlike basketball, shooting more threes matters. Okay? Like if you shoot 5 threes and I shoot 50 threes, the chances are I'm going to probably be a little bit better at the threes than you. The problem with thinking that if I play 10 football games and you only play 5, this is not including your practices, this is just playing the games, that I'm going to be the better player than you. I could have practiced every single day, all day long, and I was never going to be Robert Alexander in high school. It's just, and I can make the case that my pro career I may have outdone him as far as the pro level.
Yeah.
Part of that could have very well been his own social issues and all of those kind of things. And he's my guy. He's the guy I look up to. So, but what we have to understand is more is not better in football. And you guys are trying to display that, but because I'm like thinking, if I'm a parent and you guys got him, you got everything that I want. I don't need to pull him and take him somewhere. And I know that's not anything that you guys can control. But if you're listening to this show and you're doing that, I'm just telling you that you don't need it. Information is better than constantly doing contact, because the damages that you can do, you can't see. And you won't see them for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and that's what when you look at college programs and you look at pro teams, they're not doing a lot of contact.
No,
right? Even in the off season, they're not. Even in between games, they're what they probably put 20, 30 minutes of contact a weekend, maybe. I'm not familiar with it. You probably can, but not a lot is the answer I can see, right?
Yeah.
So what are they doing? They're developing their skill set. Like, talent's there. You're born with talent. But then you got the skill set. You got to hone. And that's what we're looking to do more. We're looking to get more strategic with that as this organization develops, is having more of an academy-style approach to it, where when you come to practice and our tournament's 6, 7, 8 weeks out, we're working on fundamentals. We're working on how to down block on the offensive line, right? We're looking at how to make those second-level reads and cuts at the running back position. We're looking at the linebackers, and we're really harping on lead step, go with flow, then attack the ball. Those are the things, me going out and telling these kids, hey, we're going to practice 3 times a week, 2 hours a day, and you're going to do 6 hours of contact. You're going to get diminishing returns on that. Yeah, if you do the contact half hour, whatever that nominal number is, you're going to get some returns on that. Anything past that's diminishing returns. And to your point, when you get those diminishing returns, you also get the heightened risk of injury.
Right.
And that to me is not worth it. If we can, and it's up to the coaching staff, in my opinion. It's up to the coaching staff to educate themselves on how we can make them better without having them smash against each other all points of practice.
See, we're talking about even on our youth football program is to spend our off season, and we encourage, we have the city of South Charleston, we have football, we have basketball, we're going to take on baseball. So we're going to have kids crossing over to different sports, which is fine. The more sports you play, the better to me. But we want to start to do off-season programs to do exactly what you are talking about is the development, because you don't have enough time in season before the grid, before the season gets started. You just don't have enough time, because you're talking about, a 5-year-old, 6-year-old who doesn't even know when you say down block. They don't know either one of those words, I mean, they don't. And you put them together, they got no shot at it. Yeah. So we're trying to do a very similar thing and spend time with these kids, a couple days a week, just talking about here's your stance. Now, once we can get them comfortable in getting into their stance, now here is this type of block that you will use. And we'll take everybody who might be, and anybody, and maybe everybody, to do the exact same thing. Because we may not have a choice of where you play, and somebody gets hurt, we got to have somebody to step in. So you could play in any position. So I like where we are, what you're talking about here, because again, you're not kids up. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and we'll pick up the conversation, and we'll go from there.
Contact Carl Lee on email. Let's talk carllee@gmail.com or text 409-422-7539.
You're listening to Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Sponsorship opportunities are available. Email letstalk@promessage.com or call 304-342-8131. For more information, visit WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. Now, back to the conversation.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Lee with Let's Talk, and we got Corey here, and we're talking travel football. Believe it or not, he's and I'll say this. I've tried to get people in to talk about travel football, but it is an uncomfortable conversation, I think, for a lot of people, because everybody knows that I am this. I hate it, But again, fortunately, I stumbled into, and again, it makes sense that Dr. Lavender is part of this. He understands that safety, and he's going to do, he understands, he's in sports med, man. I mean, this is the dude. This is the dude that you would be going to. And so if you like it, then you have to find your way of how do I make this safe? How do I do this in the right way? And it seems, again, to me that you guys are truly out there trying to make it as safe and sensible and teach as much as you can and let these kids be who they're going to be.
Exactly. So, and just to our focus as we develop with the organization is to do more of that academy style learning. So, we have practice tomorrow, and I'm bringing in a former Marshall University lineman to go in there and work on down blocking, pulling. We didn't have pulling guards in last. I probably shouldn't say this because my opponents are listening, but whatever. But we're going to put in some different blocking schemes, and we're bringing in outside help, because even we look at it and say our knowledge can only fill so much time, right? So we're going to bring in some former D1 football players, just their resources in the area, in order to help not only help our kids see or teach them something different, but then us coaches can learn as well, and then reinforce it after they do their thing. So we're looking at more things like that to evolve the organization.
And okay, so you touched on the concept of things that you may not know, yeah. And I think to realize that is huge.
Absolutely.
Because I think if you don't understand that you don't know all of it, then I can't put my kid with you.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Because I need to know, and I'm not saying that you have to have played football at a high level, but what I need to know is that that you are interested in, because what you're saying is, okay, we've won some games, we've won some tournaments, but we're bringing in somebody that is a legitimate D1 player, and he's going to work with our guys because we don't necessarily know exactly what that block might entail or this might entail. So you want to get it from somebody who's doing it now.
Yeah, that's correct. And so we're dealing with 7-year-olds. Yeah. Can we teach that block? Yes, absolutely, for a 7-year-old, right?
Right.
But we want to get them close to their maximum potential as soon as possible. Or, just keep on building and building and building. So if we can teach that in a manner that 11 and 12-year-olds are taught, because we think we have a special group of kids.
Right.
You talk to any travel coach or any organization, they have special groups of kids. I firmly believe that. And so we're bringing that in to try to teach that at a higher level and get the common vocabulary down. Start teaching them now of what they'll hear later on as they progress with football. The second thing, and I'll hit on this, is you were talking about, not recognizing that we don't know everything. That's near and dear to my heart. I will be the first to tell you that I don't know everything about football. I can't go out at a high school or collegiate level with certainty and teach, RPO, other schemes like that without a lot of research and all that. But I would need resources in order. So you look at that, and you have to have some self-realization that, hey, we're good. We're doing great. We've got the number 1 7U football team in the state. We got great talent. It's a great culture, but don't rest on that. How do we get better? And if we can't individually take it to the next level and make that better, we have no problems with saying, hey, we're going to need some resources. Let's bring them in and do it.
Well, and one of the interesting components that I think is a small thing, but ends up becoming a huge thing, when you talk about using the proper terminology.
Yeah.
The terminology that people are using today is different than what they used back in my day.
In my day.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, if you're teaching, youth football or a youth travel team, and you're using terminology that you've pulled from youth football or out of the air,
yeah,
you're hindering that player as he goes forward because the terminology becomes different. And one of the things that and actually it was an official who brought this to my attention. We were playing a game, and a kid and the official threw a flag it was holding. Okay, it was one of our offensive linemen was holding, and the official on my sideline said, "You know what's bad about this?" And I said, "What?" He said, "That kid still doesn't know what he did."
Yeah,
and you see this, and you see it in youth basketball. Our youth basketball league is going now, and we go from kindergarten to 5th grade, and so can you imagine a call being made from kindergarten or 1st or 2nd, and they tell you double dribble, like that kid. He knows he did something wrong because they blew a whistle and they're stopping. But he doesn't know what happened. And it's one thing, it can be funny in basketball and all that. But in football, it could be an issue. It could be a really big issue if you're not teaching what is wrong and what that is that you did that is wrong.
Yeah, and that could be a safety issue as well.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you don't grab them by the face mask and take them down, right, we're going to call a penalty on that. But if no one's there to explain that and reinforce why that's a bad habit, then, yeah, it may be going again, and somebody may get hurt. And you're talking about the double dribble example. My daughter is in 2nd grade. My daughter played a basketball game last night. My daughter double dribbled about 3 or 4 times, got called, right? She didn't know what she was doing. I think the coach tried to explain it. Still, coach did a good job explaining it, but she just didn't quite grasp it. So she had to come home, and we had to explain to her that.
Well,
right?
Isn't it too, because probably the terminology and the way that the coaches, and this is not a hit on coaching. This is like you're in the heat of a game, and you're trying to coach and teach at the same time. Hey, you can't do that. You can't pick up the ball and then keep moving. That's walking. And you kind of got to go. That kid, that first grader, kindergarten, got none of that.
No.
They don't have any of that. And again, my approach here is not about the coaching, but it is actually now what we're talking about is the ability for kids to, how do we get kids in a situation to where we can actually teach them? And what you guys are trying to do is you're trying to give them the most updated information and terminology so that as they move from maybe travel ball to middle school to high school, they're going to have the current terminology that's available right now. That's the goal.
That's the goal, and even at that, it's segmented by different middle school, high school programs.
Right.
So we're gonna pick some vocabulary and run with it, and I'm sure that'll be close to the same as then when they get up to those programs. Because travel ball for me, at it is once you hit middle school, that the need for that wanes. There's a lot of programs. The academy style programs, the training and everything that they will be getting. Plus, another thing you hit on was the multi-sports. We're sitting here talking about playing football outside of football season, but we still tell them play multiple sports. And there's a reason why when we look, I had a board member just the other day from a league of a sport that's going on right now, and was asking what the availability of the players that are in that league, because he didn't want it to affect his league,
right?
His respective league. And we actually talked and worked it out to where we don't have any cross-channel conflict, right? But I want to make sure, say, hey, well, if you need them for here, we'll steer clear of those few dates. We don't have a tournament then, so that's fine. But we'll steer clear of those few dates so you can have those people in your league. They won't impact you, right? Another thing we do is a lot of our players also play baseball. So during baseball, we may have one tournament, and that's it. So we're respecting those other sports because we feel like that's a good thing.
So talk to me a little bit about your tournament schedule and the way that you go through your schedule, because you guys don't play a lot of you all don't play a lot of games or a lot of tournaments throughout the year.
Yeah, I think this year. So I'll walk you through the actual dates or time frames, and then I'll walk you through the day in the life of the travel tournament. So, like I said, I had one December 2nd and 3rd. We played 4 games in 2 days. Won that tournament 7U. Skipped this tournament, but we're going to have one January 6th and 7th. It's called the Ice Bowl, and for good reason. A few years ago, had to plow the fields for game day. So, and then we're looking for another one maybe in the spring. So you go from January to possibly April without a tournament.
So how, when you're getting ready for one of those tournaments, how does your practices change, or are they still mostly teaching and still just 30, 40-minute contact? And then I need you to get into the kind of the game schedule too, because that was something that I wasn't aware of either. And I think people who are doing it might know if they're doing it this way, but I'm curious about the schedule.
Yeah,
as
sure,
well.
Sure. So we'll go once a week if it's not close to a tournament, and 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the tournament, we'll go twice a week. And a maximum one of those is full contact for like a short period of time, a maximum of one. So we're mostly worried about installs because we're looking to become more dynamic on both sides of the ball, specifically offense. Defense is like at this age, it's you just have it's pretty flat. Here's what we want to do. We'll adjust. We'll play sandlot football when we're out there, right? But offense, we're trying to get that more dynamic. So as a As an organization, we probably pass on a higher percentage than a lot of other 7Us that are out there. I think that's important for both linemen and our skilled players to do. So we're looking at installs and repping what we install a lot. And then we'll focus on fundamentals as well. Contact will just be, hey, we got to get up to game speed. We can't. There's some tournaments where we could go in first game and give it a half to get up to game speed and then really start kicking. But if they've been out a while, we got to get some contact in just to get them fresh and get them up to speed, game speed with it. So when we go into a tournament, I'll use the weekend before last. Go in, we checked in. I believe our first game was somewhere around like 1 p.m. So we came out at 1 p.m. and played I believe it's 8-minute quarters, but continuous clock until the last 2 minutes of the game. It only stops. I'm not going to get everyone, but it stops like change of possessions, penalties, things like that. But other than that, it's a running clock, and you got you got 3 timeouts you can use per half, so it runs fairly quickly.
Okay.
So first game,
not a lot of contact actually happening there.
I mean, we've had
from a standpoint of time.
Yeah, we've had. I believe in the past year, we've had a game or two within tournament where there was no change of possession in a quarter. Right, I mean, so because you can stretch that out.
Right,
it's supposed to be 40-second play clock, but sometimes not really paying attention to that, it can get stretched out pretty easy.
Right.
So I would say games are more like each half or each game represents a third of an actual youth football game, where you're actually stopping the clock when it's supposed to and everything. So it's probably a third, could be maybe a half of regular youth football. So we played at 1. Then we went and played again at 3:30. They're always that's another rule about travel football tournaments. It says 1, you got to be there at 1, but it'll probably be 2:30, right? It's just the way it is. They get backed up, and so we played a game at 3, and then we played again at like 6:30, and we won all 3 games, and then we showed up for the championship the next day about 3:00, something like that. It was sometime in the afternoon, but we didn't really play until a little bit later.
So is that clock still the same even for the championship? Is it a continue?
Correct. Yeah, it may be. Tournaments are different, but the last 2 minutes of the game, it's the clock will stop, and it may be last 2 minutes before half. I think.
Okay.
Like every tournament's different, and you just got to read them. Tournament basis.
Do you know? Do you know of any other travel? I don't know if I want to call it a league or organizations that the timing is different, or is the time, like for the clock, the play clock, is that something that's universal through travel ball or not?
I would say my educated guess is no. Around here we have a great organization that puts on several tournaments called D1. I believe they're based out of Georgia, but we have local representatives here that really pump D1. That's one organization. So they have their own set of rules. It's normally normal football rules, which is a couple little, but we'll play those tournaments. We're familiar with it. But then the tournament, this past weekend, I forget what organization. It's a different organization putting it on.
Right.
So it could be completely different rules. And then the Ice Bowl, January 6th and 7th, they'll have their own set of rules. And it's all your standard football rules still apply.
Right.
But we're talking like kickoffs, punts, what they do with that, how they handle overtime, how many coaches they put on the field, just those little things.
Tell me about the coaches. I'm interested, like how many, so to them, I guess, or why or when is it less coaches or more coaches? What is that about?
Any more than 2 coaches would be too much at any level, in my opinion. I've coached 5-year-olds.
Really?
In my even 5-year-old coaching. If you got 3 out there, it could be. I think there's. I don't think you really need that. And plus, you're doing a lot of with 3, 4, 5 coaches out there. I'm talking on the field,
right?
On the sidelines. A lot of micromanaging there. You got to give these kids, even at 5 or 6 years old, some level of autonomy out there, so you're not micromanaging every play, right? But there were 2. This last tournament had 2 coaches on the field. One looking at where are we going to make our adjustments in order to stop the offense. The other one's looking more positionally, so I may be looking at the whole scheme, saying, hey, they're unbalanced our left, so we're going to do this with our linebackers, our safety, while the other person's looking for, hey, defensive end, you need to attack that outside shoulder. You need to have that outside containment, right? He's looking more positionally at it. But that's just different, and it's preference on that with different organizations. We did it with one coach in youth league, and that's fine. With these players we have now, I mean, we've got a smart group of players, I believe, for their age. And so there's not a lot of micromanagement going other than some adjustments here or there. And then if there are mistakes, which everyone makes mistakes, we'll try to get that on. We'll try to talk to them about that in between plays so they can go out and do it the right way the next play.
The interesting piece to me is it's similar to the youth league as far as coaching and what's taking place on the field, with the exception of, I think a lot of times, sometimes we might get caught up, and I say we get caught up in watching the play and potentially not seeing who did and who didn't do what they needed to do so that the play is more effective. Where you guys are so focused into the fundamentals and the technique and who's responsible for this type of block or that type of block, so I'm supposed to block you, and you got me. Then obviously it's my fault because I didn't get my block. So now you can address that easier, and I think there's a huge benefit to that, because I think in the youth league, I think a lot of times it's a come on guys, come on guys, we got to do this. And yes, we all as a team, we do have to do this. But I think there needs to be that space and time where, you do try to, focus in on that specific guy's mistake, so he or she even can learn that and understand what they did. I think for us, I'm speaking South Charleston now, under my watch, I think where I have what I'm learning in this conversation is the reality of the importance of the prep work, to teach the kids these types of things so that they already know it, which again, part of this is something that we're discovering, and why we want to get into that kind of mode in the off season, get as many kids out as we can a couple days a week and go through techniques, terminology, steps. What are the steps to this, to that, to that? I think those are the most critical, because in season, it's tough to do that, because each week, you might be trying to going against a different defense, so the blocking scheme may have to change, may have to do that, all these kinds of things. So, I feel that I'm getting some education here for the benefit of our youth football program.
Yeah, I mean, the way we do it, and it's ever evolving. We are consistently challenging ourselves as an organization. How do we get better? Because as our players get better, they're going out. They're, like I said, they've I believe in all the tournaments that we faced at our age group, I think we lost like the championship game 2-0 in one of our tournaments, but I believe every other tournament at our age group we've won at 7U. So we're trying to challenge. We're doing two things to try to challenge these kids, and one is getting smarter and more strategic with how we coach, like what you're talking about, the academy style, right? And that's what we're working towards. We have to consistently challenge ourselves, take our pulse, and say, hey, how are these kids going to get better? And that's what we're in the middle of doing. We're evolving our program to be something more than just that team that goes out and competes. We want people to look and say, hey, maybe I don't want travel soccer around here is a good example. So I have two kids that are in travel soccer, and when they sign up for their specific organization here, there's two different ways to sign up. There's the academy side, and there's the travel side. And you can do both. Right? You can do academy and not do travel, or you can do academy and travel. And I think maybe you can just do travel and academy. But the point is, I think that's when we look at this, there may be kids, there may be players out there that their parents say, hey, we want you to get better. We know you love football, but we don't want you out there hammering and thumping and banging, right?
Right.
So we've got in my opinion, we got a toned down version of probably what the standard is, or what I view as a standard, where it's a lot of thumping and banging at the travel ball. So with our travel team, we have that, but I would like to bring that a notch, even lower impact than that, maybe. Mm-hmm. And this is just kind of hypothetical, and going and doing kind of like an academy style. So you can, if someone wants to focus year round in football, you're not doing it in a live action, 100% hit manner. You're going to learn the fundamentals of it, and that's where the resources and everything else come in.
Well, and I think there are kids that are football limited. Some linemen, which I've seen a lot of them playing basketball, which I think is great because for footwork and all that kind of stuff, I think that's great.
Wrestling too.
Wrestling as well. Mm-hmm. I have said this ever since I did not wrestle in high school. Wrestling is by far the best sport when it comes to football that you can participate in.
Yeah.
Because I believe in hindsight, that body-on-body contact, there is nothing better than experiencing winning and losing all by yourself. And now being part of a team, understanding that role that you have, part of this team, you are responsible for doing just that thing for this team. I think that there can't be any other sport any better than that.
Yeah, and I'll throw in there as well. Another alternative would be like jiu-jitsu. So I put my son in jiu-jitsu, and you're talking about the individual. It's kind of like a put up or shut up. Shut up.
Yes, absolutely.
But I tell you, another thing I took from that, the jiu-jitsu, I'm sure other sports have it, is you either win or you learn. Yeah. And I think that's a great mantra, because if you can learn from a loss, you didn't lose, per se, right? I mean, so you can really take that attitude. So I think our coaches were talking today, and I think we've had in league or in youth league ball and in travel ball, I think we've had 4 losses in 3 years total. And we took every loss that we had and we turned that into a lesson. And I think that's a lot. And where I took that from was like jiu-jitsu and seeing my son do that. And hey, you know what? You won this tournament. You got waxed on that tournament, but it was better for you to get waxed, right? Because you're learning more when you're doing that.
Absolutely. And I've been fortunate, and I say this sincerely. I've been fortunate enough to play at Marshall University when Marshall was not winning. And I'm out there and I'm playing as hard as I possibly can. There was options to quit. There were options to transfer, to go somewhere else. But I liked the fact that I was playing. And I liked the idea of playing as hard as I could. And I got Bob Pruitt as my as my assistant coach. He's giving me some information. I got Sonny Randall, who played in the league, as my head coach. I'm smart enough at that age, knowing what I want, that here are 2 guys who are helping me. I'm learning stuff from them. So the losses were easy learning situations for me.
Absolutely.
We get into I go to the league, and in year 2, Les Steckel becomes our head coach, and we're like 3-13. Okay, we go 3-13. For me, that was normal. It didn't break me down and might think about like I might want to quit. I can remember a guy, great linebacker, Dennis Johnson. He played high school or college ball. He didn't lose like 2 games in 4 years, and now here he is in the pros winning 3 games. He didn't know how to handle that. And so again, to that point, it is so important to utilize that loss as a learning thing to try to figure out like what happened. And I got that from my dad. If my dad didn't care about the score, win or lose, all he worried about was the mistakes that he saw me make.
Yeah, I get that.
And I may not have thought that I made any, but he always found him, and I hated it until I was sitting in my locker in Minnesota with my name plate on top of it. I realized how important those conversations were, because nobody wants to relive a mistake. I don't even want you to tell me I made a mistake. More or less, relive it and try to explain why it happened.
Yeah.
And I think if you can get kids to buy into that thought process, you got something.
Yeah. And that's what we one of the mantras we have. I mean, there's probably 100 Corey-isms out there, I guess. But one of my say is you do two things with a mistake. The first thing you do is learn from it. The second thing you do is forget about it. After you learn from it, you don't need it anymore, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of things I see, on the other side of the coach on the other side of the ball, we're out there, and I'm out there on defense, and I see kids, if they make a mistake, like coach may jump onto them, and just hammer them. And those kids are now not playing to do their best; they're playing not to make a mistake,
right?
And that limits
right.
them, right? And so my goal is, I'm not perfect, but my goal is when I'm out there, I want you to be the best that you can be. And if you jump off sides, and I remember we were in a game last year with our crosstown rivals, and the kid jumped off sides, looked back at me, kind of getting tears in his eyes. He'd already learned from it. So I said, hey, man, forget about that. Go get me 5 yards back. Very next play, boom, 8-yard loss, tackled the quarterback. So if I would have jumped on him, though, would I have gotten that? I don't know. But that's the way to do it.
And that's huge to me, because again, there is no possibility of not making the mistake.
Yeah.
I mean
everybody makes them.
Everybody makes them. And I know watching our youth basketball league, and kids will make a mistake, and they'll throw their hands up, and kind of like make an excuse for something. If we could convince them to understand,
it's okay.
It's okay. You're going to make that mistake.
Yep.
We just don't need you to make it constantly. We need you to learn from it.
Yep.
So you don't do it again.
Right.
But if you sit there and try to make the case that, it really wasn't me, it wasn't wrong, I didn't do anything wrong, you're not accepting the reality of what is part of sports and life, is that mistakes are going to be made.
Yeah, one of the what we're driving for there is accountability.
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
And I think that
that's huge.
We're in the workforce, and you need accountability.
Yeah,
and you need to hold yourself accountable. You need to you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. But with these kids, it's okay to mess up. I'm not going to jump on you. Don't throw your hand. That's to me. There's a few things it'll set me off a little bit, and one of them's the shrugging shoulders. I didn't do it, or what? Hey, the flag's laying there, not going to come up.
Right.
Let's just move on.
Right.
From it, right. Let's get them on the next play. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I think that is a great for kids, adults, anyone else. Just be accountable. I've made a few mistakes. You expect as a coach, as a business owner, everything else. I'm not going to try to blame somebody else on it. I mean, I'll tell you straight up, it was me, and here's what I'm going to do to fix it.
Right. Yeah. Corey, man, I appreciate it. As I knock over my camera,
tearing the place up.
Yeah, tearing the place up. I was really hoping to get a show that could be a easy conversation talking through about travel football. And I think there was a host of people who just, and I get it. I could be, people who've watched the show, I can dig a little bit. I wanted info. I wanted info because I heard about you guys, and Dr. Lavender was telling me about the way you guys do it, and then when you got a chance to get on the phone, and I was like, okay, so this changes the whole perspective. Now what I can actually do is say, here is a way to, if you're going to do it, and people are going to do it, there's a better way than trying to play in every tournament, every weekend. being too physical, you know, and ladies and gentlemen, I hope that when you're listening to this, you can decide what is right. Go to practice. And you got to go to practice. And you've got to see what is taking place with your child in travel sports. Absolutely. You have to do that. That is the accountability for you, because if you don't, you can't assume that the coaches are going to do it.
Agreed.
You know, so Corey, again, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Lee, and this is Let's Talk, and we're out of here.
The opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of WVRC Media, its management, employees, or sponsors. Contact Carl Lee on email, letstalkcarllee@gmail.com, or text 409-422-7539.